You know when they make you wait a really long time for a sequel, and when they finally put it out, it's not very good? Well, this is me reading the Bible again after just over 3 years of procrastinating. I can't guarantee quality, but I promise you there'll be no Jar Jar Binks. Let's do this. So when we last left our heroes, God had called for a 7-year famine, and there wasn't exactly much rejoicing. The people rioted and started selling stolen food for dirt cheap prices, but God managed his famine anyway because, well, he's like super powerful and stuff. So Elisha goes to this woman whose son he'd resurrected and tells her to get the duck out of Fudge because famine. And she does. She and the fam go hang out with the Philistines for 7 years to wait for food to start growing back again back home. When it does, she goes back and starts begging the king to give her back the shack she was living in. Now, for some reason, the king takes this as a cue to ask Gehazi, who is one of God's right-hand men apparently, to tell him about the good stuff Elisha had done. Because that's the sort of thing you do when some lady wants her peasant mansion returned to her. Gehazi tells the king that Elisha resurrected this lady's son, so the king says, "Yeah, all right, have all your shit back." So, good deed done, Elijah goes to Damascus, where Hazael, King Ben-Hadad's right-hand man, meets him with a bunch of bribe gifts and says, "Dude, our king is like totally sick and stuff. Is he, gonna get better?" So Elijah basically tells the guy to go to his king and say, "Yeah, you're gonna recover, except that God has shown me that he's gonna die and it's gonna be soon." Maybe it's just me, but I thought there was some little commandment against lying. Then Elijah starts crying his eyes out and tells Hazael that he's gonna be king someday and will do some quite horrible shit to Israel, to the men, the women, and the children. So Hazael, ever the truthful gentleman, goes back to the king and tells him, "Yep, you're gonna get better, your majesty." What a prick. And then the next day he smothers the king with a wet cloth in his bed and usurps the throne. I might have called him a prick too soon. Now Joram, the 32-year-old king of Israel, goes and does this raid on the Edomites. It really doesn't say why. And they all go hiding from him in their tents, because no one would ever think to look there. But then Edom and Libnah, who the hell comes up with these names? I've heard better named Klingons, stage a revolt. And then we're told to stay tuned for the further adventures of Joram coming up in the Book of Chronicles in about 10 pages. Now we are told that when Joram croaks, his son, some 22-year-old named Azahiah, takes the throne. So Azahiah is the son-in-law of Ahab and, following in the guy's footsteps, starts committing atrocities. It doesn't say what, they're just described as, quote, evil in the sight of the Lord. And then he teams up with Joram, who I really thought was dead, to fight Hazael, who was also doing evil, if you'll recall. So it's evil versus evil, not good versus evil. And Joram apparently gets hurt, and I guess the wounds make him sick, because it says he was, and he goes looking for someone to cast Cure Light Wounds on him. Man, this book has some continuity issues. Did someone say continuity issues? So now Elisha told some prophet's kid to go pull a fraternity prank on some dude, Jehu. He says, take a box of oil, dunk it over his head, tell him he's the king of Israel, and then run. So he does. But before he bolts, the prophet's kid tells Jehu that he's going to smite the house of Ahab, and then he, the prophet's kid, is going to drive a wedge between Ahab and some dude who's peeing against a wall, make a bunch of royal houses act like a bunch of other royal houses, make a bunch of dogs eat Jezebel, and make sure nobody can bury what's left of her. And then he turns tail and runs. Man, people were pretty brutal back then, weren't they? And Jehu is all, what the fuck just happened here? Then it gets weird because all these guys seem to say that it isn't true and he's not king, but then they all take off their shirts and put them under him while he's at the top of some stairs, and they play a tune on some trumpets and say, Joram is king! The fuck? So now Jehu starts making naughty political plans against Joram, who actually did manage to get his hit points restored from that wound he got in Syria. So he takes a chariot and goes to visit Joram. Some dude in a tower spots him and tells Joram about it, who goes, alright, send a guy to meet him and ask if he comes in peace. The messenger dude never comes back. Uh-oh. So Joram sends out a second messenger to ask if it's peace. And Jehu's all, peace? Me? Ha! Charge! Joram goes out to lead his own troops and finds himself face to face with Jehu, and like an idiot goes, dude, like, can't we just get along? And Jehu's all, yo mama, because apparently Joram's mom, Jezebel, is practicing witchcraft, and hey, that's gotta stop. So Joram goes all coward and runs like a scared little bitch, and Jehu takes out a bow and shoots him in the back, like you do. So Joram tells his captain Bidkar to go hunt him down the way they did with his father. Now God, who hasn't put in an appearance in quite a while you might notice, goes all bloodthirsty, tells him, good job, now go stomp him into the ground. So now Joram goes after King Ahaziah, who runs away to some place called Megiddo and dies there. They don't really say how. So Jehu now goes to Jezreel, where I guess Jezebel was staying. She hears about it, puts on some makeup, and looks out a window. So Jehu goes into the city, and she asks him if he comes in peace. You'd think people would learn to stop asking him that question by now. A small gang of eunuchs looks out the window, and Jehu tells them to pick her up and chuck her out of it. So they did. Jehu stomps on her body, then goes into the castle and has a big hearty meal. He gives orders to have her buried, but when they go out there, they only find bits and pieces. I don't even want to know where the rest of her ended up. Let's hope that famine wasn't still on. Instead of burying her, they feed her to dogs and use the poo to fertilize a field, like you do. And that's chapters 8 and 9 of 2 Kings. I don't know how anybody can derive inspiration from this. It's just badly written stories of hatred, war, rivalries, and brutality with almost nothing I'd call religious content. There's no philosophy, no god magic, in fact barely any god at all. And I'm just like, who builds a religion on this shit? Seriously, I don't get it. Until next time, fellow space travelers, this is BionicDance, reading the Bible so you don't have to.
Attention citizens, failure to contribute will result in suspended oxygen privileges. Attention citizens, failure to contribute will result in suspended oxygen privileges. Attention citizens.
You've got two choices. You can rate this video and share it everywhere across social media, or I can send my minions after you. Choose wisely.